Looks like we're live. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, every week, the Heinz Center, myself, and our wonderful team, we endeavor to, um, you know, uh, live out our mission in the ever changing uncertainty of these very challenging times. And as we get new information regarding the progression of this pandemic, as we get new information regarding our ability to navigate our lives, our cities, our country, and as we continue on into what is now, the fifth, sixth week of staying at home, quarantine, whatever you want to call it. What I'm noticing is, in addition to things like hair dye and clippers being higher on sale, or there's the sales being higher. So we're now having to take our appearance into our own hands. I'm also noticing that we're all experiencing a collective grief. Last night, before my daughter went to sleep, she just had a breakdown. She's 4 years old. And she just said, Mom, coronavirus is ruining everything. I can't talk to my friends. I can't play outside. I can't go to school. I miss my beautiful classroom. And I cried with her because she has been so resilient up until this point. She's been kind of going with the flow, just kind of like, okay, and last night was just a breaking point for her. And it was for me as well. And I noticed that we're all experiencing a collective grief that manifests itself in different ways and is triggered by different things. Some of us are grieving the past. We are grieving life as we used to know it. We're grieving specific places that we used to go, things that we used to do. We're grieving our routines and our schedules. We're grieving the ease that we used to move through the world with. And other folks are grieving the present. There are folks who are grieving the present situation that they're in. They're grieving the lack of control that they have. We are all grieving a sense of feeling cooped up, trapped. The protests that are making headlines this week should show you that people are grieving comforts, the comforts of their own services and self-care routines. And a lot of us are grieving the future. There have been plans for graduations and engagement parties and weddings and birthdays that have been shifted or canceled altogether, and we're grieving a future that we thought was certain. We're grieving the things we always took for granted, the fact that we would be able to go try that new restaurant, or the fact that we'd be able to see people that we thought we'd be able to see. We're grieving the plans that we had at our jobs. We're grieving the plans that we had for different organizations that we're a part of. We're grieving the conferences and the gatherings. And then one of the biggest and most painful ways that we're collectively grieving is we're experiencing real loss. A friend of mine said that she feels like this is Endgame, Avengers Endgame, where people are passing away very quickly at her left and her right. And every time she turns the Facebook, TV, whatever the device is on, she's learning of new losses. And I feel the same way. I've lost some unexpectedly dear losses in the last week. And so, I just wanted us to have some space to address the ways that we're all collectively grieving. And I wanted this wellness practice to be a safe space for you to move through the only way out of your grief, which is by experiencing it. I know that that's not as sexy or as popular as some of the blogs and listicles, that's list and article, that we've been reading. And there's no real hack for grief. I'm not a grief expert. I'm just a person who is experiencing a lot of it. And I wanted to share the tools that I'm using with you, in hopes that we can feel a little better, engage a little peace of mind, have a safe and clear way for us to know and release our emotions and feel better in our bodies. So, the first thing I want us to do as we engage wellness practices right now is I want you to come to a comfortable seat. Come to a comfortable seat. Begin that diaphragmatic breathing, that in through the nose, out through the nose breathing that I'm always teaching about. That deep sip of breath in. And then the deep sigh out. Try another one. Deep breath in. And then let it out. Even as you breathe in, feel some of that pent-up emotion melt away. Let's do another one. Deep breath in. Sigh it out completely. Get comfortable in your seat. Give yourself a little more space to get really settled. Even as you notice the signs of life that are happening outside my window, I still want to invite you to engage your tools in the art of meditation during this time. Now let's start our breathing in through the nose. Pause and out through the nose. In through the nose. Out through the nose. Take deep breaths into the nose. Out through the nose. Regain some of the breath that it felt like we lose, that it feels like we lose when we get this bad news. I felt this morning like someone had punched me in the stomach because I received some devastating news. Get your breath back. Go in through the nose. Hold it and breathe out through the nose. Let's go in through the nose for 4 breaths, 4 counts. Hold it and then breathe out for 5. In through the nose. Hold it and go out. You know what breathing does? Breathing tells your brain that your body is okay. So that even though we may be experiencing some deep emotional pain and be living through some very traumatic experiences, breathing brings us into the perspective that we are not physically in any danger. And it gives our minds enough oxygen to be able to connect to whatever the next good decision is. Breathing also helps us to de-escalate. So we could sort through our emotions for the valuable information that our emotions give us. I learned something this week that our emotions are stored in this part of our brain called the limbic system. And then there's another part of our brain called the frontal cortex. The limbic system is where our visions and our dreams and our hopes and our relationship energy is formed and stored. Our memories, the sentimental moments that we can pull up. And then our prefrontal cortex is where reasoning and logic, decision making, that's where that stuff is stored. And if our limbic system is overstimulated, and if our limbic system is constantly experiencing a heightened sense of activity because of trauma, it inhibits how our limbic system crosses over into the prefrontal cortex to be able to help us make decisions during that time. So breathing deeply and allowing ourselves space to feel what we feel and allowing our emotions to recede gives us the ability to make the best choices we can possibly make during this time. And there is no perfect choice. There is no right choice. There's just the best we can do, And breathing like this sets our brains up for optimal functioning. Now, as you breathe, I want you to close your eyes or just gaze softly somewhere. And I want you to give yourself space to feel how you feel. Notice what thoughts come up as I discuss the different types of grief that we're all feeling. If you've experienced a loss of a person, notice what comes up for you as you hear me talk about grief. If you're grieving your future plans, if you're grieving your present circumstance, if you're grieving the past, just notice what feelings and emotions come up for you right now and just breathe through it. Notice what memories pop up, the faces you see. Notice what thoughts arise without judgment, without trying to analyze or change the feeling or sensation. Just notice. And I want you to inwardly say to yourself, what I feel is valuable. What I feel is based on real events. And what I feel will pass. What I feel is valuable. What I feel is based on real events. What I feel will pass. Give yourself more of those deep, generous sips of breath. In through the nose and out through the nose. Allowing yourself to feel how you feel. And allowing every exhalation to breathe out your feelings, to breathe out your emotions, to breathe out the stress that accompanies them. Now, if you have a pen and paper, or even if you don't, maybe a phone or something, I want you to respond either in writing or even in the comments or in the chat, or just to yourself. I want you to respond to the following questions. The first question is, how does my grief illuminate what I most long for? Grief does us a favor. It really illuminates what's most important to us. Richard Rohr says that when we experience the shock of a loss that sends us spinning, we actually experience something called non-dualism, which is the suspension of this black and white, wrong or right thinking. We're actually more unified with the divine in our consciousness when we experience grief, which the way that manifests is that someone lingering too long at a red light just doesn't bother us as much. Some family member doing their normal family member shenanigans is just okay with us during this moment. There's a sweet kind of suspension of what normally bothers us and what normally just gets under our skin while we experience grief, because we only have the capacity to focus on what's most important. Things like family and being together and meeting each other's needs, that kind of stuff. And so as you think through the thoughts that came up for you while we did our brief grief meditation, ask yourself, what do I long for most that my grief has illuminated? How is your mind like the divine mind because of how you've been able to suspend the non-essential things in your mind? And thinking about that, for me, grief illuminates just my deep care and concern for people's well-being and people having what they need. And so my grief response is, do they have enough groceries? Do they have what they need for their basic human needs? Do they have money? Do they have transportation? And all that they have going on, I'm thinking about the most core human needs. That's always my response in any tragedy or, crisis. So that illuminates my desire for people to be sustained and to survive. How can we add some of that to our own experience today, right? So whatever your grief illuminates about your deepest longing for other people and for yourself, how can you add a little bit of that to yourself today? How can you see what you are most preoccupied and concerned with, and then give it a little bit to yourself? Grief sometimes helps me to cling to the friends and the people that I do have, and obviously in gratitude. And so, that's where we, again, get into that non-dual divine mind thinking that Father Richard Rohr talks about. Third question is, how does my present situation, my present life bring me comfort? I have a comfortable place to cry today. I have a comfortable place to remember and reflect. How does your present life situation actually provide any comfort for you right now? Anything you can cling to will help you feel better. And then, what future plans keep me hopeful as I look forward? What future plans keep me hopeful as I look forward? I have plans for my little baby girl. She's going to be tired of adventures when we are on the other side of this. She's going to say, Mom, please, we just went somewhere last weekend. And I'm going to say, girl, we've been in this house for 11 months. We getting out of here. And so the hopes that I have, the new ideas that I have for adventures and mommy and me days, and what I call yes days, which are days where I say yes to whatever she wants, and it's dangerous. But I say yes to whatever my daughter wants. I'm excited in those yes days. The future and the hope of those yes days is pulling me through the collective grief that we're all experiencing. So I encourage you to think about what future plans give you hope, because those future plans can still happen. They may not happen on the timeline that we expected. Those future plans are still possible. My fifth question, I can't stop talking about gratitude, is when you're ready, write down 10 reasons to be grateful right now. Give yourself space. Even if that thing you write down is, I've heard about a worse story than mine, and I'm just grateful that my story is not as traumatic as some of the ones I've heard. That is okay for you to feel. There's no shame in that. So write down 10 things, 10 reasons to be grateful. And if grateful is a word that's not really helpful for you, 10 things you're glad about right now. Because gratitude brings gladness. And as a bonus, give yourself a little more space, a little more time, and a little more love today. I'm so grateful for you guys. I want to share a couple of opportunities with you this week. Go to hindcenter.org to check out all of our events. Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll have a happy hour and a comedy hour at 5 o'clock. So this guy named Jerry Wayne, who is an awesome comic. He will just completely blow your mind and throw you for a loop. All his jokes have these surprise endings that you didn't see coming. So Jerry Wayne is going to be with us tomorrow. At 3:30, we have a writing workshop in our Zoom room. So log on to hindcenter.org. Do people still say log on? I'm from the 90s. Go to hindcenter.org and click on our workshops and special events page if you're wanting to help. Andrea is so good at helping us navigate how we're feeling. So you don't have to be a writer to go to the writing workshop. You do have to know how to write, meaning how to use a pen and make shapes that other people can read. The other thing is I'm going to be teaching classes throughout this time, these workshops where I'll be expanding the principles that I'm sharing here. And so we got like a little 20-minute session here, and I'm going to be really building out this kind of content, and we'll be creating action plans together in our Heinz Center courses. So I encourage you to come. And the courses are on a sliding scale, whatever you can afford. And if you can't afford anything, there are also scholarships available if you just send us a note. Lastly, I just want to wish you guys well. I'm not my normal exuberant self today just because I am in the number of people who are losing people left and right, and it's weighing heavy today. And so with my heavy heart and all the love I have, I just wish you guys true wellness as we navigate these big life questions that accompany these uncertain times. And the Heinz Center is here for you, and so am I. You guys have a great evening. What is this? Afternoon. Have a great afternoon. Bye.